Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Now, you already know you should have a notepad in front of you. You should have a pen because you need to take notes. You need to make a commitment to yourself to jot down an action item, something that you will implement in your business today, something that will grow your business or drive your business forward. Make improvement. That's what it's all about. Have you ever been in this situation where you need somebody for your team? Maybe you've completed an interview and the person is like, okay, well, what do you think? I really believe I could help your company. And you're like, I need you now. You know, they're like, when do you need someone to start? Well, I need you now. Or perhaps another manager is trying to recruit for the team and the prevailing sentiment is, I needed someone yesterday. Why is this? I think intuitively you can understand that this is far from ideal. Now, our company, BMI, has a very robust and effective human resources department, and we can help recruit for you. And it's come up recently in a discussion where it's not uncommon for our clients to need somebody immediately. That is, when they reach out to us, by the time a client reaches out to us for a recruitment, they really need someone desperately. It is urgent. And I think you could understand that given time, we could do a better job at vetting candidates, exploring the talent pool, and coming up with the very best person for your team. And yet, that's at odds with this notion that so often is the case, which is you need somebody urgently. So why is that? And as I was having this discussion and we were exploring this concept, it came up, well, of course, but that's because people give you, say, 1 week or 2 weeks notice. It's very common that someone might terminate their employment or quit by saying, you know, I'm hereby tendering my resignation with 2 weeks notice. Therefore, the manager, the employer, only has maybe at maximum 2 weeks to try to replace that person. And by the time they've maybe settled a few other things, that time frame can quickly shrink to maybe only a week. And so it was posited to me, or I had the advice asked of me, so what can you do about that? How can you change that situation? I said, that's an excellent question. Let's dive in, let's explore that. And that's what I want you to do with all business questions. Management should be fun. When you have challenges in your business, it should be exciting. It shouldn't be frustrating, but these things can be and are for so many people that I deal with. They get frustrated and think, oh, I'd rather do without having to deal with this. And that's what we're here for, so reach out to us. But if you're tuning in, then hopefully you would like to make a difference, become a more effective manager, and you really enjoy problem solving, and you like to think about, well, how can I mitigate this situation in my own business? So maybe you want to pause the video and give some consideration to that. Will some of the advice I give right now occur to you naturally? Will you come up with something else on your own and then maybe leave it in the comments for us to explore at a future date in a future video, or as a community, you sort of deliberate in the comments. Here's the thing. I would argue this. When you hire somebody, they are, in effect, you should sort of theoretically think of it this way. They are, in effect, giving you their notice at that point. That is to say that it's an impermanent thing by nature, employment. No one is going to work anywhere forever. And you can readily accept that and go, yeah, theoretically, that's true, Michael. People aren't going to work forever, but we hope for the best. And if we're doing a good job with our people, they will last for a very long time. I want you to begin with the end in mind. I want you to try to solve this problem by first accepting that no one you hire will be there forever. And if you accept that, the next thing you have to do is start to plan for the time when they will leave, when that person is no longer available, when that role needs to be filled by somebody else. What have you done to lay a groundwork so that you aren't dealing with urgency and that you can maximize your chances of filling that role with the very best candidate that's available in the market? That's the concept that I want you. It all starts there. And there are certain positions, we've talked about this before, there are certain positions for which you should have an expectation that they're going to be much more transient in nature. Maybe your entry-level positions, those lower paying positions, maybe those frontline positions that tend to turn over more often. Therefore, you need to, in those cases, really embrace the idea that when I hire somebody, history has told us that this is not going to be for a very long time. Now, what happens is business managers, entrepreneurs, managers tend to do the opposite. They hope for the best. I want you to hope for the best, but I want you to plan for the worst. I want you to plan for the inevitability that somebody, or the probability, if it's not inevitable, it's very probable that you will have to replace that position. And don't do what an average manager or an ineffective manager does, which is fails to think about it, or they think about it and they block it out and they don't do anything about it. So that takes us to the next thing. Well, what should I do? Well, I would say that recruitment is just one of the most important things about HR. You have to develop your people. You have to work with your team. And so you want to explore, you want to set up a good report card, some sort of performance evaluation metric document. And then what you want to do is have these performance evaluations periodically from time to time. And most of you, if you're being honest, let's be honest, you're not doing that. You're not meeting with your people every month, maybe even every week, but let's say every month or every quarter on a regular basis. You're not meeting with them. In fact, when you hear the term performance evaluation or performance review, the first thing that pops in your mind is, oh, they're going to want a raise and I'm going to have to deal with the remuneration, their pay in some way. If that's what a performance evaluation means to you, that is a symptom that you are not doing this nearly frequently enough, and you're not addressing the real crux of what these evaluations and these meetings are meant to be. They're a great way for you to communicate with your team members and develop them into the best that they can be, into realizing their full potential. Now, if you will accept this, and at any time pause the video and sort of deliberate in your mind and think about this and ask yourself, does this really make sense? And when you accept it, then I want you to then come back and say, okay, so what should we do with that? Well, that means you're going to have to put something in place. You're going to need a report card. You have to put something in place, and then you have to schedule these meetings. Now, in those meetings, you have great communication. You get to find out with people. Now, this could have started way back in the recruitment process by asking somebody what their 5-year plan looks like, where do they see themselves in a year. There can be indications during the recruitment process of whether somebody is likely to be a longer term, I'm not saying long term, longer term, certainly not saying permanent employee, or whether they might be more transient in nature. And there is some indications I'm not going to get into right now, but there are some things that you can intuitively figure out on your own that might lend to your belief that someone is not likely to be as long-term as another. So of course, during the recruitment process, you want to try to do things to try, if you want the very best people. Well, first, actually, let me pause there and say your goal should be to try to get the very best person for the role, not the person who will be there the longest. And that's something that, I think a lot of managers struggle with as well, because they detest the effort that goes into trying to find somebody, recruit somebody, acquire new talent, and then train and develop that person, that they will do anything they can to avoid that and retain their current talent. There's something to be said for retaining the current talent, but when you add talent to your team, you want to get the very best, someone to help drive your business forward, even if that means that person is going to leave. I would encourage you to find a better person, or rather, the way to word it is to hire somebody who's better, even if it means that their chances for staying long-term are less. Now, there's sort of a sweet spot there. I can appreciate you're not going to want to hire somebody who's only going to be there for a week when you need somebody, if it's a permanent position. But I want you to think way back to the recruitment. Anyway, I kind of got a little off track there, but there's a concept you want to wrap your head around there. You will grow your business by adding the very best talent to your business not by finding whoever's going to stay the longest because you want to avoid the effort and work that goes into hiring people and recruiting people. But getting back to the concept that you've already hired somebody and you've taken reasonable steps to get to know them throughout the recruitment process. Now what you want to do is continue that rapport building and that development and that relationship between you and your team members. You need to have good relationships, and that means that you have to have a good role description, you need to meet your obligations as an employer, and then you have to schedule regular meetings to try to develop your talent. Of course, you're going to train them, you're going to give them the resources and tools they need, and you're going to meet periodically so that both of you can get an opportunity to share your thoughts on the trajectory, on where things are going and how the relationship's going. In those meetings, you're going to review the performance metrics, but right there, not but, that will give you an indication if things are going in the right direction or not. Did you make a good hire? If your performance evaluation is telling you that this person is not meeting expectations, they're failing to meet expectations, well, now you are going to realize, I want to start putting some actions in place for the eventuality or the strong possibility that this person may not work out as well as I had hoped. Okay, so we're hoping for the best, but we're planning for the worst. On the other hand, if things are going in the right direction, they are improving, then you want to commend your person and ask them. And while you're doing that, you're saying, so this is going really well. You're taking to this like a fish to water, whatever. I believe that we want to develop you and take advantage of your strengths. You're starting to learn more about that person, and ask them, where do they see themselves? What do they want to do? What would be ideal from their perspective in this role? You have to have these conversations because those are where you're going to, it's from those conversations that you're going to glean an indication of how long that person is going to be around. Now remember, people are just going to stay, they're going to go with whatever their best opportunities are. We all act in our own self-interest. So you can accept that, you can understand that your team members are going to stay employed with you insofar as it's the best opportunity they have. And of course, you'd have to factor into that formula a little bit of risk because it's not always obvious to somebody if another opportunity is out there. I'm not saying that there's that if somebody's working for you, that means they could not work anywhere else better. I'm saying that they're at some level evaluating the value relationship and they've decided, yes, they are getting somewhere near a balanced, commensurate value exchange. In other words, what else is out there for them without taking an inordinate amount of risk is likely not that much more valuable to them. If it were, they would go and pursue that. And here's what's interesting. You know that, but the opposite, why don't employers realize that? The opposite needs to be true as well, is that if there are other people out there that would benefit your business and your team and you're acting in your own self-interest, you should be adding those people to your team and replacing a person who may not be as strong. Now that's, I'm sure, a controversial thing for me to say right now, and some of you are thinking, oh, well, that's kind of cold-hearted. You can't just keep looking for the best people and replacing those. And check out our video on differentiation because, oh, yes, you can, and yes, you should. What you're really doing, though, is remember, you're hoping for the best. You tried to hire the best person in the first place, and now you're trying to develop them. And it's not necessarily that you are firing someone or letting someone go to make room for new talent. Hopefully, because you're following the advice in these videos and you are an effective manager, you're growing your business, you're developing this new person into a greater role, into a something in your business with more potential. You're developing them, and maybe the reason that you have a vacancy is not because they quit and went somewhere else. The better opportunity that they pursued is within your organization. I mean, theoretically, that is what you're trying to do. But insofar as somebody is not developing on that trajectory, on that career path, and that the writing is on the wall in these regular meetings, you are now planning for that. So what does that look like in practice? Does that mean that you reach out to us and we put an employment ad in place right now? Maybe maybe if you're thinking, oh boy, I'm not sure if this person is really right for the team, maybe I made a poor hiring decision or whatever, then perhaps we need to recruit right away. And sometimes you need to recruit somewhat covertly, like you don't want to advertise where a person sees their position is being advertised elsewhere. However, I would encourage you to be transparent. It should be obvious to all parties, all stakeholders. The person who's having these meetings with you, the team member in question, is not surprised. You're meeting with them and you're saying, well, we really need, in the example of somebody who's struggling, you're meeting with them and you're saying, okay, what do you need from me? How can I help you succeed? What can I do to help you? We were hoping for better results or whatever. And you're having that conversation, and the degree to which it's not on you because you've met your obligations is how much they will realize that, it's the writing is on the wall, and maybe they will be on their own. They're probably, when they see the writings on the wall, they're probably also looking after their best interest, and maybe they're out there applying for something that's a better fit at the same time. Just think of these things. This is a two-way relationship. It's a two-way street. And your obligation, your self-interest is to grow your business. And you have that obligation not just for yourself, but also for the other stakeholders who rely on your business, your customers, the other team members, your business partners, your management, and so on. I would advise you that you should always be recruiting, but that doesn't mean you should always be hiring. There is a difference. You want to have talent acquisition, the concept of recruiting, as an ongoing concept in your business. You want to always have some mechanism through which you're putting the feelers out there. So you might not have an official position available today, but you're encouraging people to apply for careers within your organization. If that sort of seems foreign, that concept seems foreign to you, hopefully you can take that away from this video and you've learned something new, which is you may not officially have a position today, but you still want to encourage talented individuals to reach out to you for employment in the absence of any official position or any opening. Wouldn't you want, if somebody was really talented and they could really help you grow your business, wouldn't you want to meet with them and explore the opportunity? And if they were a superstar and they wanted to join forces with you and it was really obvious to you that they would improve your business and you might have to replace somebody, I think you should do it. But I have in the past, I've added talent to the team. I've extended myself financially, took a bit of a risk and I remember saying to one individual, he asked me if I had room on my team and I said, no, I actually don't have room on my team per se. We're not officially looking for someone. However, I will always make room for a talent such as yours. And that's what I'm saying to you in this case. If you're going, well, I just can't afford that, I would challenge that. I would say you probably can't afford not to do this kind of thing. And you may have to make the tough decision. If you hired somebody, you could have them work together. And if business and revenues and profits weren't growing in order to justify the expense of two people, then you might have to let the weaker member go. Think of other industries, like professional sports is a good analogy here. I mean, they want the best people on the team. It's no different for your business. Professional sports is a profession, it's a business. You have to try to always have the best people. And it's not cold-hearted because remember, your people are acting in their self-interest. So why do you as a business owner, as a manager, automatically think that it's incumbent upon you to provide secure employment indefinitely, no matter what the person's trajectory or performance it is? Of course you don't believe that. In your heart of hearts, you don't believe that. What's probably much more likely occurring is that because you're not doing these other things that I'm talking about, which is trying to spend time investing in your people through ongoing performance evaluations, report cards, looking at metrics, setting clear career paths for them, helping them to develop, and together with them growing their position. Since you're not investing in that way, what you're doing is you're leaving it to that inevitability that I talked about, where they're going to leave eventually, and then you're going to be right back in that urgent situation where you need somebody. So this all comes down to planning, accepting the idea that there is an impermanent nature to all employment. And with that in mind, just as a side note, you might want to consider hiring people on a contract basis, maybe a 1-year contract. As an example, because what that would do, it would force you and the other person to discuss it. If you know that it's in your nature to sort of avoid this topic, then force the two of you to talk about it. We're going to put you into a 1-year contract here, and then don't wait for a week before that contract is up where you guys are talking about it. Instead, make that the catalyst that stimulates you to put these meetings in place and discuss. And remember, what your goal is not to replace them. That's not the cold-hearted goal. Your goal, of course, is to find the very best people and then develop them. Maybe this is a succession plan for you. Maybe you've got a really great superstar who might want to take over your business for you, who may want to manage your business. It depends, of course, on the type of business you have and the type of role that we're talking about here. But your goal is to try to get the most out of the people, to give them the greatest opportunity, and you're going to do that. But if they are struggling and it's not a good fit and they are not growing and you're not getting a good commensurate value exchange, a good balance of value, then you have to see the writing on the wall well in advance, not when they then tell you out of the blue because they recognized it long ago and they started looking for a better opportunity. You need to be the one who's doing that. You should initiate that. So just to recap, what we've said is, beginning at recruitment, you've discussed with people what you think their prospects for their future looks like, and you've got an indication, you've gleaned from them what they want to do, and you've got some estimation of how long it's likely for this to work out. You're also looking at your history for this position. If you're turning over people in this position, remember Peter Drucker says, if you've turned over more than one person in a position, it's not the people, it's the position. So you might want to adjust your position and try to redefine your position. Is this something, are you asking too much of a particular role? That's another thing, and I think we should do a separate video on that and explore that idea. But beginning from a good recruitment, you're getting an idea and you're using data to support how likely it is you'll have to consider recruitment again for a role. Then the next thing you're doing is you're putting in performance evaluation metrics, report cards, and you're regularly scheduling meetings for communication. And then you are transparently looking at the trajectory of someone's performance. Are they on the way up? And if they are, you are creating that opportunity with full realization that if you do not, that person is looking for a greater opportunity. They're seeing that they are outgrowing the business, so to speak. They're seeing that they're putting in a lot of value. And it may be that you can keep them in the same role, but you're adding more responsibility, and along with that, you're probably having to add better perks and benefits and maybe even pay over time. And so those are the types of things you're doing. But I don't want to sort of glaze over the other relationship building that occurs in these meetings where people share with you. They start saying things like, you know, I'm thinking of going back to school, or they may share their family plans with you. And they may say, you know, somebody in my family may be getting transferred next year. There's a promotion coming up, which would mean that we have to relocate to this particular city or whatever. These types of things give you a clue. And when you build that relationship and you take the time, your people really care about your business. And they don't want to see you struggling. They don't want to leave it till the last minute. And you can, in these conversations, you can say, hey, you know, I think you're doing great here. We're going to continue to try to develop you and everything. It would be, you've got big shoes to fill. If there's something that's going to happen, try to give me as much notice as possible. Some people give very short notice because they're afraid that you're going to be upset or disappointed, and maybe just let them go right away. So if you would make a commitment to someone and say, by the way, if there ever comes a time that you know that you're leaving, as soon as you know that, if you share that with me and give me that courtesy that you can train the incoming person, I commit to you that I will give you the time you need. I'm aware of situations where people have given 1 year notice, or maybe you've got a great relationship and they're saying, I have a 2-year exit plan here. Over the next 2 years, I'd like to wind down. Is there somebody? And of course, this depends on how important that role is. Maybe your frontline position, that's very unrealistic, but somebody who fulfills a super important role within your organization in management or something, those types of things are not uncommon. So what you're trying to do is get everybody to that area of the spectrum, from dropping the bombshell at once where they create an urgent situation for you where you need to recruit immediately, but through development and good communication, you're getting indications and hints much earlier on. And the degree to which you build your relationship with them, I would say, will be a strong indicator of how much time you will probably be able to expect in terms of time to find somebody new. Sorry, my mind is wandering somewhere else here. The bottom line is it comes down to this. Either they are in the process of quitting or they are in the process of getting fired. That's the way you need to look at it. Everyone is either in the process of growing within the organization. So let's back up. Let's put it this way. They are either in the process of being promoted, in the process of quitting, or in the process of getting fired. And if you look at things through that lens and then you evaluate your people as you go, then you won't get in a situation where I need you now, I needed someone yesterday, because the urgency won't be there. You will understand, hey, this person is developing and I'm going to give them new responsibility and I'm going to take on parts of their role and give it, maybe it's somebody you can do from a remote work environment or something like that. You can add somebody part-time or task-based or freelance. You can outsource the work. There's all sorts of ways to cover off on a portion of someone's job if they are developing. So in that scenario of one of the three things, if they are in the process of being promoted, when I say that, I mean you hire someone today, tomorrow they are in one of these three states. They are in the state of developing on the trajectory to eventually be promoted and developed within your organization to a real leader, or they are in the state of quitting because you are not providing great enough opportunity for them, and so they are just working until something better comes along, or they're in the process of getting fired, which means that the commensurate value exchange it's imbalanced and you're giving them too much, and you should, out of obligation to your business, be making plans for someone else. So if you think of it theoretically that they're in one of those three states, then you can accept, well, I need to figure out which of those three states, and I want to create an environment in which they're in that first state as often as possible. And anytime they're in either of those second two states, you have an obligation to your business and you should start to plan. So don't forget, what can you do? You can encourage applications coming in for any particular role. And you think of the biggest companies in the world, these big tech companies. Years ago, I heard that Google was getting just a crazy number of applications on any given day, month, or year. Well, that's what you want to create. You would like, ideally, where you have so much interest, a pipeline of people who want to work for you. Of course, it's not going to be like Google necessarily, but if you had, at any given time, there were 5 people who are saying, hey, I'd love to come and work for your organization. If anything comes up, let us know. And you were doing some proactive recruitment strategies, which isn't hiring, but recruitment. You're putting feelers out there. There's somebody else. Remember, in another organization, somebody's in one of those 3 states. And if there's somebody who's really talented who is not being developed in another organization, maybe your competition or a colleague's business or something like that, and they are outgrowing the position and you're aware of this, then you could be planning. You could say, hey, well, maybe the timing will line up one day and we will have a role available. I'd love to give you a call if that happens or whatever. So you can now see, what I wanted to do is just stimulate your thought process and see, just because it's very common for a person to give 1 or 2 weeks notice does not mean you should be in an urgent state of needing someone immediately if you're doing the right things in your business. And the degree to which that is what's happening, that is symptomatic, not systematic. It's systematically symptomatic of other problems or ineffectiveness that maybe is going on in your organization. And if it's because of the fact that you are really passionate about what you do in the business and you're focused on your strengths, and these things that I'm describing are not your strengths, that's what we're here for. Reach out to us, let us do that for you. We can do the training, the development, we can do the report cards and all this other kind of stuff so that you don't rely heavily on our recruitment. And we can also be putting feelers out there and generating a pipe of people for you long in advance of you needing someone. You don't need to be hiring somebody today or needed someone yesterday by the time you reach out to us for this. I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. This is a really important concept, and it's kind of fun to explore and talk about these things and solve these problems, because in business, nothing is impossible. It's all just about doing better than the competition, doing better than your history, improvement, perpetual refinement. That's what it's all about. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this whole concept so that we can learn from one another, because we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.